Hello everyone. In this video, I'll explain how to make grafts on the branches of fruit trees. I have now the tambov tree is disappearing. The apple tree, it's been 20 years. So I know that in a few more years it will be gone. The apple tree is actually pretty good. So I took a cutting from this little apple tree last year. And here is the root sucker. If you take a close look, you can see the grafting site. It has fused together. In principle, this dry bark can even be trimmed, and there won't be any defects anywhere. Let's say there are no defects at all, and the seedling is great. From the trunk, it's quite far away. If I just clear a bit, you can see the root. That is, you can dig it up and plant it separately. We will also have a standard tree. I also have several of tree seedlings that were bought last fall. I didn't trim them on purpose so that I could use the tops, which I'm going to trim now for grafting. If you take a close look, from the growth I just remove completely this root shoot. Now when I need additional details, to make a dwarf rootstock, that is a standard one, I leave the ones that are growing. The root sucker, which I leave a bit thicker. I leave it, the root sucker that is at least a little further from the main trunk, so I can grab it with the root. And accordingly I make grafts on it. There are still a lot of thin ones left, so they won't work this year. Although, if we dig around here, we can do a graft closer to the root collar. Well, we'll give it a try. So what are we going to do today? We dig it out. This seedling here, it's ready. And on this one, it's in this area. Let's do a graft. I'm going to graft onto this rootstock. Glory to the victors of the apple tree. Well, now what we need to do, let's prepare it so that we can make a quality graft. I can also say a bit about the tools. What tools do we need? First of all, we'll certainly need a very good pruner to carefully trim all of this unnecessary growth. I used to use it with a scalpel like this. I didn't have a grafting knife. I also used a utility knife for grafting, but I would first clean the blade with alcohol or wipe it down, to put it simply. I took a cloth, soaked it in alcohol, and wiped it down well on the left side. That is, any operation that is performed with wood is akin to any other operation. So it's essential to wipe the tools when making all these cuts. Everything should be practically sterile. But now I remove the excess and dig it out. I've dug up our seedling with the roots. From the back side, it turns out the central one was a bit too thick, which suited the tree. It didn't take root. It broke off. I cut this spot. I'm sealing it with garden wax. You can use all sorts of rooting agents, but I don't do any of that. In the soil, in the hole where I'm going to plant this plant, I'll add ash, or perhaps charcoal, and we'll mix it in. Everything is sealed. The seedling is ready for planting. We'll be planting it somewhere. So it turns out to be about 3 centimeters. From the root, it will be about 3 centimeters on top. Our vaccination. If anyone is interested, you can see the vaccination. I did it with a vaccination instrument. Now I'll explain in more detail. And here friends have decided I am here with us perfectly. Into our root suckers. In this case, we already have a catch. We're going to graft onto it. We remove everything unnecessary from it. And now I carefully wipe the grafting area. Grafts. I wipe with rag. Of course, you can take another one to measure the thickness. I'll use a compass or another tool to make sure the thickness is perfectly uniform. but generally it's not really necessary. The main thing is that it shouldn't be thinner than what you're going to graft. Now, about the tool. I have these scissors or a grafting tool, like scissors, pruners, and for grafting come out like this. Here are the blades. Now I'll show you how they cut on this one. Here we see the omega shape, and this is where it gets cut. So we make cuts on the scion and the rootstock. Then we insert similar cuts and wrap it with tape. It will fuse. But that's just the theory for now. Let's get to practice. Now, let's go for it. Triangle. Last autumn I planted a young apple tree seedling. Glory to the victors, and now I need it. To trim, I didn't trim it in the autumn. Somewhere around a height of about 1 meter. I do a cut so that it doesn't grow straight up, but starts to branch out. Instead a cut. I carefully coat it with garden wax. This cutting is now going straight for grafting. This is the best I can offer you if you have it on your plot. Let's say the variety that needs to be propagated. Did you cut it? They were immediately transferred and grafted. If you're going to make cuttings, then the chances of your grafts taking will be much lower. And now for the grafting itself, here's the guide, and here's the connector. Here I'm shaping it in such a way that when suddenly water gets in, it flows to the cut. Here was the tip and on what I'm going to graft. It's a bit tricky to get under here, but I think I can manage. So I need to trim a little because this side is in the way. Of course, you can also do the grafting with another tool. Of course, you can also do the grafting with another tool. But for now, I'm not taking it off. Let it stay like this. Yes, about the timing for grafting. The first grafts I did were stone fruits. It just turns out that even at high movement, it didn't start. In some places on the plums, a stone has appeared. Here I was grafting plums. I grafted plums, cherries, and good cherries. These grafts have already been done. It'll show. Already grafted. Trees, but they weren't done this year. We'll move on now. A graft. So there should be a cap here. We choose it doesn't fit too tightly. It was more or less in the center. And we let go, but we don't remove it yet. I'm leaving. 2 buds. And a little above. I cut off. This place Wednesday. I'll also cover it with garden wax. Well, and now. Removing. I also remove it here and right away. Putting it on. The thickness is different. I didn't touch it with my hands anywhere so that everything would heal well. And now I'm just applying garden wax. It's mandatory to cover all these spots. Well, maybe someone will say that it's not necessary to do this. But I'm not saying do it like I do. I'm just showing how I do it, and showing the results, that I can make it work. I'm not an agronomist, I'm an amateur gardener. But if you relate with love and respect for your plants, they will definitely reward you Here I became a home brewer. The next thing you can do, if you don't have, for example, that kind of film, is to take food wrap. It stretches well. Here is the grafting tape. It's based on the food principle just now. Thinner and her. We wrap it up. Carefully I wrapped it with grafting tape. Now, it's best to hold it in place. Even though it's tightly wrapped, it sits well and is secure. Here is the cut area. I put garden wax on it. I am now sure that this cutting will take and grow. In essence, basically, you can essentially graft nearly any kind of tree you can think of. After you've completed all the steps, I advise you to take it and cover it, but I cover it with a glass jar. The wind won't blow it away. You can even add a little soil around it. And so it will stay like this for me. Until the leaves start to come out. When the little leaves start to appear, I'll start or open it up. In the evening, in the morning, if possible, when the sun is about to rise, cover it up. Or then perhaps I'll take a piece of plywood or possibly a board, or even use it as a shield. Because if you don't do this, everything that grows and sprouts will most likely bend towards the sun. This is a graft. Cherry. It was done approximately about 2 weeks ago. Maybe a little more. We can see the buds are emerging. But that's still not a guarantee that it has taken. It has taken 100%, but let's hope it takes. I can't even tell you what kind of guide I have here. Because here, let's say, the birds brought some kind of seed. A little plant has grown. I started to feel bad about throwing it away, but I decided to experiment, make a graft. Based on trunk, that's why. Well, it looks most likely like a bird cherry. In theory, it's a bird cherry. It should be compatible with the wormwood and the cherry. After I made a graft, a 5-liter bottle has been cut. And a little like this. Into the ground so that the wind doesn't blow it away. That's it. It will stay like this for me.